All right, let's call the Snoqualmie Parks and Public Works meeting to order. Please note attendance of the council members and staff present. This time I'd like to open up any of those wishing to make public comment before the committee. Please either raise your hand online or in the audience here. I see none in the audience, and I don't believe there are any in the online. In that case, we'll proceed on to approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes dated September 20th, 2022. Chair has no comments or revisions. Councilman Vincent, do you have any?
I didn't see any word.
Councilman Johnson, are you okay with the minutes as presented? Get a thumbs up. So with no objections, I will move that the minutes are approved as presented. Let's now move into Agenda Bill 22-139. Job order contracting consulting services contract with Gordian Group. And who will talk this one?
I'll start. Now I'm going to introduce Randy. So thank you, Chair. What you have before you is a alternative purchasing process that's approved by the state. So, you know, you have your traditional bid process and there are other processes, and this is one of them. We've been in consultation with a company called Gordian, who they set these programs up. And what this allows is to pre-bid items. So effectively, we have a catalog of jobs so that we can get things done very quickly because all the bid process has already occurred. And I'm doing a horrible job of explaining it. So I'm going to turn it over to Randy.
That's perfect, Michael. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor Ross, distinguished council members, and distinguished members of the Parks and Public Works Committee. My name is Randy Horn. I'm with Gordian. I am our business development director for the West Coast. I've been with our firm now for a better part of 10 years. And I come to you today to share information with you about our job order contracting program. The next slide, thank you. Just a quick overview of who we are. Gordian, we're one of the leading providers in the construction space around data, software, and expertise around construction lifecycle costing. We work with probably over 300 public agencies around the country. We've been in business for over 35 years now, and we work with primarily public agencies. Our business model is really predicated on the fact that we understand and are sensitive to some of the challenges that public agencies have regarding buying out construction projects in a timely and efficient manner. And again, with our program, it's really designed to help procurement with those projects. Okay, next slide. So this slide speaks to, again, our philosophy in building life cycle. We help public agencies around the planning aspect, the design aspect. Today, talk about procurement, but we also help as it relates to construction and construction management. And then last but not least, we help around the operational aspects. And we really do that with three ways. We have an integrated delivery model that starts with our unit price book, which is the data part of our business. We also have the software part of our business, and we also have an expertise. And so with that three-legged stool approach, we bring that expertise to bear to our public agencies to help them deliver on the construction needs for their community. Okay. So who do we serve? As I mentioned, we actually work around the country with a lot of state agencies, but we also work with a lot of counties, cities, and special districts as well. Here in the state of Washington, we work primarily with around a dozen or so clients right now, starting with Bellevue, Seattle Housing Authority, City of Bellingham, just to name a few, City of Edmonds, City of Shoreline come to mind. Those programs have been in place now for a few years, and they're starting to realize some of the benefits of having the job order contracting available to them. We also work across various functional areas. We realize organizations are comprised of horizontal work, vertical work, but in that you have parks, for example, you have utility agencies, airports. We actually have experience working across all those cross-functional areas within an agency, and we can help you across all your various construction needs also. Okay, next slide. So let's talk about what is job order contracting at its core. So job order contracting at its core is really a procurement tool, right? So again, it's not a situation where we actually do the construction for the agencies. We create a system whereby the procurement process, as Michael mentioned, has been defined and procured upfront. But we realize is that public agencies, again, they do a lot of great work for the communities, but part of the challenge is getting the work done in a very timely and efficient manner. One of the things we talk about, for example, is staff limitations. We're calling the kind of the great resignation. We see people moving on to the next chapter of their lives, public agencies, and that's creating a void at some of these agencies. And so we step in to help fill that void by putting in place these job order contracting programs. We also provide what I call cost control and change order. I call it price certainty. Before I got into construction, I'm actually, don't hold it against me, but I'm a CPA by trade. So, but again, I value dollars, right? And it's really about protecting the taxpayers and making sure we're being good stewards over taxpayer dollars. And our program is very complimentary in that regard. And I'll show you how that works as part of the overall process. There we go. As I mentioned, again, it's simply just another tool in the procurement, in this toolkit, essentially. We recognize agencies have in-house staff, you have other ways to buy out work. And all we're trying to do today is provide you another option, another tool in your toolkit, as it were, to help you get those projects done in a very efficient way. We'll be the first to tell you, JOC is not the panacea to fix everything, but it has a wide utility base for agencies. And once you start to use the program, you start to see how effective it can be, help you deliver on those projects that come up from time to time. As a former project manager as well, you can have your day planned out, your week planned out, and all it takes is a phone call from a board member, city council member or the mayor regarding a concern from the community. And all of a sudden you need to reprioritize your day. And having a program like JOC allows you that ability to be flexible and nimble around needs around your community. Okay, next slide. So some of the benefits of job order contracting really come in two flavors. One is regarding a time aspect. So if we start at the bottom, that represents a typical hard bid design process, right? Typically, you have to come up with a set of plans or specs, get those ready to go out to advertise. You have all the costs and time associated with sending it through procurement, legal, advertise, all those things. They're all important, but it takes time. What a JOC program allows you to do is effectively truncate that time aspect, right? So the next two sections talk about JOC with design and then JOC what I call informal design. So again, if you have a biddable set of plans or specs, that's fine. You can use job order contracting for that as well. But a lot of our clients will also use what I call buildable plans or specs, where it allows you to stop short of something you would need to go out on the street to advertise for. Because again, with this program, you have a pool of on-call contractors available for you, and now you can insert them into the process earlier. And what that means for you is now you start to get that collaboration up front, that time savings, and that partnership you really want with a contractor to move the process along faster. And then last but not least, we've seen agencies work with what I call an as-built or a narrative scope of work that allows you to get out to construction faster. Of course, it's a simpler job, but again, it allows you to move faster their process, again, being more responsive to your community and your end users, okay? Another aspect we talk about is the cost savings principle. Starting from right to left, Arizona State study did a review about 2 or 3. Oh, okay. Okay, 2 or 3 years ago.
That's
Okay.
our other council person.
Oh, okay, I got you, okay. Okay,
Apologies left.
no, that's okay. But the cost savings, as you can appreciate, is from the admin, really it's about 24%. So again, if you think about all the time that's required to go out and get plans or specs, your procurement time, legal, that adds up to about 24% of savings by going through the JOC program. And then the direct cost, what I call hard costs from a construction standpoint, is about 3 to 8%. Now, again, in full disclosure, the market right now is very volatile as it relates to pricing. So that number fluctuates based on the project type, the commodities, the materials you're looking to use. But on average, we'd see about 20 to 30% savings when it relates to using a job order contracting program, with a lot of the savings coming from the huge time and effort associated upfront on an administrative basis, okay? So JOC defined. JOC at its core is a competitively bid master, what I call umbrella contract, right? People are familiar typically with on-call contracts, whether it's engineering or design services. JOC ostensibly works as an on-call set of contracts that have gone through a very rigorous competitive process. I want to be very clear about that. The JOC process does not cut corners. It does not somehow reduce the competitive process. Exact opposite. We take great care to make sure that the contracted community knows about the process and the program, how to bid the contracts, how the price book works, just to make sure everybody's clear. When we do this, we get very few challenges from the contracted community because we do a really good job of slowing things down and making sure they understand the process and how it works. But essentially, once you put in place the umbrella contract, it allows you to pivot very quickly now to execute individual job orders, or we call them projects as well. Okay. So JOC really is summarized in a two-part process. Part one is where I talk about that umbrella process, is where we go through the advertising procedures. So typically we work with your procurement team, your legal team, to make sure that the contract documents, meet muster essentially, right? So we customize them for your particular agency. We won't try to force fit Shoreline's business model on what you do here. We want to make sure we take care to make sure that your principles, things that are important to you and your community and your contracting provisions are incorporated at the master contract level. So we always start there. And we do that through a very extensive, what I call programming phase, which takes typically a few months. But again, it's a really important part of that process because we need to make sure that master contract is nailed down tight, okay? We also go out, we do extensive outreach to the community, to contracting community, to let them know what's coming, right? We're saying, hey, the city of Snoqualmie is very interested in doing this model. They have potential projects in mind. We're not making any promises or commitments other than this is another tool we're adding to the toolkit, but we want the contractor community to be apprised, not to be surprised what's coming up. Last thing we want is our council members getting called about, hey, what are you doing with this JOC program, right? We want to make sure we get the word out and they're educated about it. But ultimately it goes through a very extensive competitive process. And at the end of part one, what you have is a pool of contracts available to your for your use. Per the RCW for job order contracting, it allows us to award up to 3 contracts for your agency. And we always recommend from a best practice standpoint that you award at least 2 up to 3, because ultimately you want to make sure you have the options available for you for your projects, right? Contractor A may be busy one week and it may not be able to be responsive to you. Okay, then we have contractor B, right? If contractor B is available or they don't specialize in that kind of work, then we go to contractor C, right? But it's always about maintaining the best option, the flexibility for your agency, so you get the highest performing contractor for your projects. Part two, I'm sorry, one more. When we move on from part one, then we get to part two is where we actually start to do the individual projects. And that's where we get down, again, the rubber meets the road, right? What kind of project are we looking at today? How important is, what is the timing aspect of it, right? Is it an emergency project, or are there any special considerations we need to take into account? All those things are defined as part of part two, and we'll get into that as well. Going back to part one, we also make sure we track it at a very, what I call a programmatic level. We do this by making sure that we put in measurable performance standards or KPIs for your program. So what defines success for your agency? Do you have any self-performance goal requirements? Quality construction, we define that each and every time a contractor does a job, we do an evaluation form to make sure we understand, are they doing a good job for us? Did they do things in a timely fashion? Was the quality what you expected? And we use that as a feedback loop to the contractor to make sure they understand. If you're not happy, we make sure we manage around that process also, okay? So the contract documents really are made up of 3 components. One is what we call our construction task catalog, which is the unit price book. So that forms the basis that we're asking the contractors to bid on, okay? And what Gordian will do in that situation, we will research material prices and equipment prices local to your agency. And then from a labor standpoint, we take that information from the state's prevailing wage or labor compliance to make sure we layer that in as well. The point I want you to take away from this is you're always paying prevailing wage. And from a competitive standpoint, you're getting prices local to your market. Our team will actually call in, what does a sheet of drywall cost in your community? What does it cost to rent a forklift in your community for a week by month? All that information is then integrated into our catalog to make sure it forms the basis for your local prices, okay? Part 2 is the technical specifications. We'll take your agency's technical specs or design standards and layer that into the contract documents as well. And then last but not least, the big part is, again, working with your legal team and your procurement team to make sure all the bid documents meet your requirements before we go out to advertise. Okay. Here's just a quick depiction of how detailed our price book is. In the old days, we used to actually have print out those like, it used to be like the yellow pages as it were, and make the thud sound. Good news, everything now is electronic and online. But essentially, this is a snapshot of how detailed our price proposals are and information. And we do that deliberately because we want to make sure, again, the agency is paying for what, you get what you're paying for, right? And so again, this lends itself to a very auditable and transparent process that I mentioned earlier. In our price proposal, it looks like this. And then whether it's 10 line items or 50, again, you'll have every bit of the detail with the corresponding notes and information in there. So if there ever was a question about audit or review, we can print that out at a moment's notice or share it with you electronically, but it's all there for review and evaluation. Here's a snapshot of our implementation process. I like to say this, we know you have day jobs and you're busy doing your regular functions. We pride ourselves on being very consultative in that we like to do 90 to 95% of the heavy lift and provide you information to react to. So like I said, we'll work with your procurement team and your legal team. But essentially we'll bring into play our D&I, which is our strike team that comes in, and they'll make sure that we get all the documents together for you. We'll make sure things are as easy as possible to move forward within process. And again, that's part of the role we play in the whole experience for job order contracting. Okay. Just a real quick reference to our software. It's web-based. The contractors will have access to it. You and your staff can have access to it. We can create individual dashboards from a KPI standpoint to let you know how things are tracking. We track our costs by the CSI, which is the Detailed Specifications Institute for Construction, but we can roll them up by division or by area. We also have situations where we can track by region if that's what you're interested in as well. So again, we have a lot of ways we can cut and slice the data when it comes to reviewing and evaluating the data. Okay. Now we're moving on to part two. So we've set up part one. We have this master contract in place. We've gone through the competitive process. Everyone's happy. We have a pool of 2 to 3 contractors. Now we want to renovate this room, for example. So this is where, the fun part starts. We have a scope of work document, but we also have an opportunity really to promote what I call participation with local contractors and subcontractors. A lot of agencies now are trying to make a priority to recycle dollars in the community. And we pride ourselves on helping with that as part of the process as well. So when we do outreach, we'll not only reach out at a prime level, but we'll also reach out to subcontractors to let them know there's opportunity to do work with you as well. We'll work with your team, with Michael and his team, to identify particular projects that may make good partnering opportunities at the subcontractor level, all in the spirit of trying to recycle those dollars in the community as best as possible. Okay. When we actually are ready to start the job, we have a 5-step process. We're doing this over 30 years around the country. We've identified a really robust and really good framework when it comes to doing the job order process. This allows us to, again, to be very auditable and transparent in the process. We start with part 1, which is the joint scope meeting. So we'll go out to the job site. In this case here, using this example, we want to remodel. Not that this needs remodel. This is a beautiful place, but I just want to say we wanted to remodel. We would come together with the contractor, potential subcontractors, the Gordian representative, and your team members to talk about what is it we want to get accomplished with the scope of work here. We'll reduce that scope of work to writing to make sure that the owner is happy with it. So Michael or his designee will sign off on the scope of work. Step 3, the contractor will prepare the proposal based on the Gordian cloud software I mentioned earlier. Step 4, Gordian will review the proposal to make sure that it's accurate, defendable, and transparent. It has all the key notes and findings in there. And at that point, we'll sit down with your team and review that proposal to make sure it meets your pricing, your schedule, your subcontractors. Everything up to this point is at risk to the Gordian and to the contractor, okay? At its core, JOC is a performance-based contract. And this is the thing I really enjoy most about it, is the fact that if the owner's not happy with steps 1 through 4, there's no obligation to move to step 5, which is where you issue a PO for that particular job. Our experience is that, for every 10 jobs that we start with the owner, we probably issue a PO 7 to 8 times. So again, 70 to 80%, and the other 2 or 3 reasons, whether it's schedule, budget, or other issues, they don't move forward. There's no cost implication to the agency in those situations. Okay. Our next slide, Michael. This is just another slice of the data that shows where Gordian, we play the role in setting the meeting up. Again, I think of it as hitting the JOC button when it comes to doing the project that activates our team. And we like to start the process running to move things along. We'll coordinate with the contractor, the subcontractors. We'll talk about any long lead items as it relates to materials. Our expertise, people on our team, they're former contractors, construction managers, engineers. So they bring a wealth of information to the process and a true value add to the experience as well. Okay. We're almost done. Gordian job order contracting. So again, as an overview, we set the program up for you. Like I said, we do 95% of the lift. We train your team, the contractors, to make sure everyone's aware of what the program is, how it works, all those good things. We do program management with you. We'll sit down and design the right kind of program for you based on the types of projects you plan to do through the system. We help with scope development, proposal review. We have additional services that you can access for our construction managers. If you have your own resources, that's great. But some agencies like to take advantage from time to time, and we have a separate fee structure for that, but that's also included in our services. And then last but not least, we do reporting and tracking on whatever cadence you would like, monthly, quarterly, biannual. We can get that information for you on a regular basis also. Okay, and so recap of the benefits of a job order contracting program starts first and foremost. It simplifies the procurement process, right? It's really where it starts and where it stops. We realize that it takes effort and time for procurement professionals and your team to bid these projects out. And what we found is that there's a huge backlog right now, a lot of agencies. So work's going into the funnel, but not very few projects coming out at the bottom because of procurement challenges, timing, staffing limitations, and so on and so forth. This really creates a great tool for Michael and his team to get the project done for the community in a faster way. We talked about improved quality of work. Because job order contracting is strictly performance-based, there's no financial commitment to use the program. You pay as you go and as you use it. So, you use 3 contractors, you find yourself using one, they're doing a great job. That's fine. If you use all 3, that's great also. But if none of them perform, then we need to understand that and we stay involved with that process to make sure the program is working for everyone. Let's see, we talked about subcontractor participation, and then I'll leave you with this. It's a fully transparent process. Again, job order contracting is very detailed, very transparent, and provides an element of price certainty. You guys are talking about budgets, I think, coming up after this. Some of our agencies will actually use our JOC program to help them, in some cases, plan out and price out some of the projects that are coming up down the pipeline as well. And so with that, that's an overview of the program, available to answer any questions for you. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
One of your slides mentioned that we can anticipate perhaps as much as a 3 to 8% savings on construction and a 24% savings in administrative costs. Is that factoring in the cost of working with Gordian
So-
itself?
Sure. No, so that's a gross number, and then our would be net of that. So yeah, our fee. So you figure net of our fee probably in that 17 to 20% range, somewhere around there.
So that would cut into that savings, or is that factored into?
It would cut into the savings.
It would cut into that savings. Okay, all right. But with that's still a net
Net savings,
positive.
exactly.
Okay. And the other question I had is when you're looking at these projects, if we have 7 or 8 projects
Mhm.
coming up, or 10 or 12, are you looking at ways to work those projects
Yeah.
together to save? I know that that's a big priority for
Sure.
Mr. Chambliss,
Mhm.
to find savings across projects.
Sure.
And within one another. Is that part of your?
Yeah, no, great question. And absolutely. Part of our programming strategy is to work with the team to where we can phase projects or bundle them where it makes sense. We certainly will bring those recommendations to the table. RCW has a limitation on how large individual project can be, but within those constraints, we certainly will work with Michael and his team to say, if you're thinking about doing this one later, what do we look at combining these potentially for some economies of scale or savings or time efficiencies as part of their process? Absolutely. Okay, great question.
Councilman Johnson, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't necessarily have questions for you. I have questions for staff.
Okay,
So thank you.
okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, and so first question, the scope of projects we would send to Gordian, because I'm slightly wound up in that we were supposed to have a conversation about the community center. Is this community center or not? This is not community center.
No.
What type of projects would be going Gordian's way?
The rear stairs of City Hall would have been a JOC project.
So these are more like the small works projects we would.
Correct. It can go bigger than that to a limit, but we're having conversations about the decking on 202 out there. That it would lend itself to a JOC project. We're looking at 2 or 3 baseball fields that are going to need to be refurbished because they're kind of hazardous at the moment. That could be a JOC program. We had a car go through the fence down in the ravine and we had to replace that fence. It took us 2 months to get through the process to replace that fence, which is safety. And that would have been a 5-day JOC to get that fence going. So those are the type projects that we're looking at. This is not do the whole sewer plant expansion.
Okay, and we're talking about 200,000. What's coming out of the budget to bring $200,000 in the budget?
This would be the existing capital programs it's another tool to work on the existing projects. It's not that we're asking for an additional $200,000 flex to go do this work. It would be under the existing approved budget that we would be pulling that money out and just using the jock to make the work happen.
So for those projects assumed to be in scope, will we be reducing their value by the 10% savings we're expecting? Guys, if you're not taking the money out of the budget, you're not saving any money. Okay, so I'm being told to go do this because of the savings. Show me the savings. Where are they? And if they're not, you're just asking me to spend $200,000. Okay, so I'm looking for, are we taking 5% off the top of the projects we might assume in scope? Or other areas where there is either cost avoidance or cost savings to offset that $200,000?
So I can work with Drew to go through the capital program to identify those projects. We haven't gotten that far down the
He
road
hasn't got
yet.
that far. He'd like to hear it.
We have not had those conversations yet because that's further down the road. So I understand your point. I do understand your point, but we have not done that yet.
Bob, you were standing up. What did I do wrong? When the lawyer gets it, what did I do wrong?
Do anything wrong. It's just to elaborate a little on Director Chambliss's comments. It's difficult to identify the savings until you actually have a project move forward that you could use this on and compare to what your price would have been if you spent all of the costs, go through the regular process and put a bid out on the street. So you've got your CIP, which is not a budget. It's got estimated project costs in it. But if you don't get a jock contractor like Gordian or another firm that does that on board, then you're not in a position to use the tool at all. So it's similar in that respect to the alternative the design build GCCM method that I talked to you about for the community center. If you don't go to the project review committee and get approved, you can't use it. If you don't have an entity on board to help you, you can't use this tool either. And there's a cost, potential maximum cost available under the contract to use them. If you don't use them for any projects, but they simply go, then those costs are not incurred.
Right, and this is a total pay as you go by project.
Yeah.
We lost my Councilman Johnson. Any other question?
I mean, it seems like if they're working at scale and they have the opportunity to find savings for us, I get where your question is coming from. But the way that it was explained, seems like that they may have opportunities to save money as well. I wonder if there's some way that we could do a comparative study of a couple of projects, one that we do through the normal process that we've been doing, and one that we did through Gordian. I don't know if they do like a test case kind of thing, so where we could get some kind of idea of the kinds of savings that we could anticipate in the future.
Yeah, but the issue then becomes each project's kind of different unto its own. So they're kind of
Sure.
hard to compare to each other. The other part is what we have to compare them with is our estimate for what it would cost. Well, it may only show that Gordian's better at estimating than we are. I don't know. So it's hard to really pick out where that savings. I've been thinking along the same lines and haven't come to the conclusion where that is. Okay. What I come to is it's an alternate path for the small works projects. But there's administrative costs on top of it that you hope are being saved by the in-depth market knowledge they have, the competitive advantage they have of servicing several municipalities. That you hope you get a savings from.
And the speed.
Huh?
And the speed to get the project to construction. One project that would lend itself to jock that would be a direct comparison would be the sidewalk repair program for next year.
Could we bid it to Jock and then bid it out and compare?
Well,
Really different.
we did it this year, the traditional way.
Mhm.
And next year, if the Jock is in position, we can use Jock to do it. I mean, it may be gala apples to, there you go. That one. But it's not apples to oranges.
Right. And throw inflation in there this year.
My Apple
I'm gonna
knowledge.
put that on you.
Welcome to Washington State.
Councilman Johnson, you have your hand up?
Smith, that's the one I wanted to say.
Yeah, what I was wondering is, does this program in any way allow for staff and administration to do a project that would have otherwise come to council to approve a contract, but by having the Jock in place, those projects can be approved skipping council, if that makes sense?
No, because of the financial policies, the council has to approve the expenditure. So there will still be a council. What this would allow me to do is use operating funds for park maintenance to get something done really quickly.
Yeah, the small
That
stuff.
is within my purchasing authority or the mayors or the city administrators. It does not allow me to exceed that. So anything that would be coming to the council is still coming to the council.
Okay, great.
Part of it liked the answer, part of it didn't. All right. All right. Recommending moving forward, but I'm not recommending consent agenda at this time.
If you are not recommending consent agenda, then I also would not want that. Yeah, but I do.
I
do
agree.
think I do think this is potentially a very useful tool. And if
There's an opportunity here.
yeah,
Thank you. Let's move on to the next agenda bill, which be Agenda Bill AB 22-128 SR 202 downtown Snoqualmie speed limit reduction. I like going fast than slower than fast and stuff.
All right. Evening, Mayor and council members. Pat Fry, one of the engineers with the city. You've seen me before. Yeah, so like Councilmember Holloway pointed out, it's the agenda bill to lower the speed limit from the northerly city limits through to about the middle school. There's a multitude of speed limits in there that I'm proposing reducing. And this is based on first in 2018, we as a city requested WashDOT to lower the speed limit there. And in order to require, or a requirement to lower the speed limit is a traffic study done by WashDOT and an approval from their traffic engineer. And so that's where we got to. And now we're bringing forth that lowering of the speed limit. So attached in Exhibit 3 is the traffic study. You're welcome to take a look at it, but I won't go through all the numbers at the moment. And then Exhibit 2 is going to be all the maps, which I will share just because that's helpful. And essentially what they came to is that we're pretty much already, let's go to comparison. Is that not legible? Unless you have incredibly good vision. Essentially what they came to though was that people are already adhering to what the new proposed speed limits are based on the 85th percentile speed. And so we would just lower the speed limits to what everybody's already going to. So it makes a lot of sense in my mind. It will lower traffic incidents and collisions and essentially do what everybody's already doing.
These are the new speed limits?
On the right is the new speed limits. Yeah, sorry, it's hard to read as comparison. I've got printouts of the maps too, if that would be preferable to folks that are in the room.
So through downtown is 25,
Yeah, so
30.
yeah,
for
exactly. So from northerly city limits, which is past the Salish Lodge, 35 miles an hour up to Northern Street. And then from Northern Street through downtown, 25, and then from downtown to the middle school, 35.
And the SMS would be, or that would be the place where the speed limit would change.
Yeah, just south of it.
Yeah, that's the current break, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Caught myself. No, at 45 at the beginning, yeah, right off 202 there, Parkway.
I've never understood that.
Well, yeah, it's been, the speed limit has been the same since 87, so maybe it made sense in 87.
Did it though? I mean, okay.
Hard to say. I wasn't here.
I don't think the Parkway was there in
The
87.
Parkway was not there.
Well, then maybe it made sense then. Agreed.
Oh,
But I've always
yeah.
been nervous going 30 through downtown with all the pedestrians.
Yeah, in 87, when this was a little town of, I don't know, 2000, it was about 1,000, it was about 1,200. I don't know what was in 87, it was probably 800. No,
Doesn't seem to be
no.
doing the right thing on the screen. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, don't count each other.
Thank you. I'm just surprised that people actually tend to go 35 from just past the Salish Lodge to the north to downtown. I feel like I definitely don't think that I see 45 very often, but 35 seems lower than what I tend to see down there. So I don't know. Does that seem like how people really drive up there?
So if you look at the, oh shoot, I am not sharing the right screen. One moment. Let me share the screen. So looking at this table, the at location 25 point, sorry to bring the small font up again, at 25.8, that is just about the Salish. The median 85th percentile speed is 39 and 37, depending on which direction. And so while it's not quite 35, it's quite a bit lower than 45.
Can we consider 40 instead of 35?
So these recommendations are coming straight from WashDOT. If you want me to
Okay.
take it back to them, I can certainly do that and request that they perform another traffic study and recommendation.
If I would have to go through all that, then maybe it's fine.
My recommendation is to go with what the engineers recommend, because then the liability is on the engineers and not on the council.
Yeah, Joe.
On the city.
On the city.
We all go away eventually.
Okay.
Sorry.
I have always, I mean, I don't know how many times I drive 35 in that section and I have somebody climbing up my butt the whole time. And I would prefer, I know that it's not about my preference, but it feels so strange to gun it up to 45 so that I can bring it down to 30. That seems so much more natural to me, what is being recommended, so.
And then to turn on the 4-lane road, which is only 40.
Yeah, you go from 40 ostensibly to now you can go 45 for 150 yards and then you got to bring it back down. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you know, that the Parkway didn't once exist does make sense, but it exists now.
Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, I know that in the past I've talked about designing streets in a way that makes the most natural speed be what you want people to drive. And I think that the downtown section definitely meets that criteria. So I definitely think that a lower speed limit is fair. Yeah, that's just how it's designed, is for people to go around 25. So let's try to make that principle wider as we continue revamping streets and stuff to the best that we can. Make it look the speed that we want people to drive.
And plus, we have way more people downtown now than when that original speed limit was set. For public safety, it's probably a good thing to do this. Is a good thing to do this. I'm okay with moving this forward, actually recommended and on consent.
Do you think people are gonna want to not be? I mean, maybe they can pull it off consent. Yeah, I have a feeling people are gonna want to comment on speed limits that are gonna affect so many people, but you know, per the criticisms, let's put it on consent and let somebody pull it off.
Then they could be told the same thing that I was told.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's go to Agenda Bill 22-144, temporary license agreement with Gerard Resources and Recycling.
I don't see Jeff on there. Do you want to take this one? Oh, there he is. I can let him in.
Good evening, members of the committee. And also we did have a placeholder on the agenda for an executive session discussion if the committee would like. There is litigation related to this. And I'd be happy to brief the committee about that in more detail. Or if you prefer, I can just speak to the license agreement document that's before you and see if you have any questions.
Bunch of questions, but you just put them all in executive session.
Or since there are other staff members and folks here, if the committee wanted to move this to the end and do an executive session and then come back and address this issue and deal with other matters first, I'm fine with that as well.
Well, in light of the potential litigation going on, though, it is your recommendation to do this temporary extension of the license.
Correct. This temporary license agreement, it's not an extension, it's a new document, but it would authorize Gerard to make some improvements and then direct stormwater to existing temporary ponds that were previously constructed to handle drainage from this area, but that are currently outside of the lease area that Gerard occupies. And so that therefore that necessitates an additional instrument to allow them, permission to use that area, but as well to construct some of the improvements, the pump and pipe and some of the ditching and other related improvements that are described in the agreement.
I would defer to the recommendation.
Yeah, based on city attorney, I recommend we move forward with this. I probably do want to have that executive session to understand what's going on. Councilman Johnson, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
If you'd like, you could just withhold action on this, move it to the end of the agenda. We can have an executive session conversation, then which would give you the opportunity to hear from other folks here on other items. Then clear the room. We have the executive session, then you could conclude with that.
I know that in regards to that conversation, I'm still debating, is it consent or non-consent on the council agenda?
I don't.
If you're going to move it forward, I would recommend making it non-consent, put an executive session item on the council agenda. We can have the
Agreed.
conversation with the broader group prior to council action on the document.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. Let's do
Yeah.
that. All right, non-consent with noted possibility executive session at council.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mouse today, it's taking me a little longer. All right, with that, let's move. Oh, that was it. Discussion items. Do you want to do those in any particular order? Do you want to do introduction to Kevin so that he has his choice to actually go have dinner?
Management here.
Okay,
We can do that. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the computer to cooperate. It's cooperating. Okay. Kevin, come on. So it is my pleasure to introduce Kevin Friesen, who's on that side of me, who is our new Parks and Streets Superintendent. He has a extensive background in horticulture and sports fields. We actually stole him from a Division I college. So I'm really happy. I'm going to let him tell you what he'd like to share about his background. So.
Thank you all for your warm welcome to Snoqualmie. Tell you a little bit about myself. Professionally, I'm a certified golf course superintendent, a certified arborist. I have a PCA, which is a pest control advisor's license in California, which is way above what Washington applicator's license is. Also have a qualified applicator's license. I've been a certified irrigation auditor. So, and like Michael said, I've worked at a Division I school for the last 5 years, St. Mary's College of California. So some of you guys might know us from Gonzaga. So we seem to be a thorn in their side at times. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Look forward to training our people in safety of pesticides, bringing our standards up on our baseball fields and our sports fields.
thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's move then on to waste rates increase, sorry.
Yes, on September 27th, I received a letter from Waste Management letting us know what the 2023 CPI rate adjustment is going to be. It is 9.543%. And then, that sorts through all the residential, and then the commercial per ton rate is going up 9.518. I have a list of all the charges, which I can send you after the meeting because I can't seem to find it right this second.
So, and I thought there was some additional collection above and beyond just the waste management rates that we had as a buffer. Might this be opportunity to tap into those to make the rate increase not as much?
I don't know anything about this,
Okay.
but I will definitely
Am I making
research it.
sense, Drew, on that?
Sorry, I wasn't actually reading the document. What's your question?
Was that before Mike joined the team? Is that?
Yeah, it would be before Mike, when we joined the team. There was the rate for waste management, but either included in that or above that, there was some additional that came to the city.
So there is a 12% administrative fee that is charged to waste management, basically, that we collect right from them. So this will actually, based on the rate that we see here, actually can influence the budget, right, that we have overall. We are also charging a utility tax on solid waste as well, which is another 9% or so on that in addition. So
Is there opportunity to reduce that administrative fee to potentially reduce the overall rate increase here?
well, I think we'll have conversations with Waste Management and Mike over here regarding that. I think we have to gather some further details together in order to discuss that, because I believe we had extensions as well in place with Waste Management over time. And we will review that. I don't know if Bob Sturbank has any sort of comments you may want to add regarding that contract with Waste Management, but those discussions are ongoing.
Okay.
We have one left, one extension left, and we will be extending the contract one more time.
Even though you're getting hit with a 9% rate increase. Okay. Which I've heard nasty inflation numbers, but they thought they would balance out to be less than 9% when we got through all this, but okay. All right, and then we want to have a discussion of bear cans.
Yes, Marcy Manabusan? Close, or, okay. She's here from Waste Management and she can let you know about the status of the Bear Grant program and talk about other general waste management stuff.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor Ross and members of the committee. My name is Marcy Manabusan. Very great job pronouncing that. People get tripped up on it all the time. And I am a public sector manager for Waste Management, and I manage the contract that we have with the city of Snoqualmie, which we've had now for 10 years, if you can believe it or not, started in 2012. I'd be happy to speak with Director Chambliss or any members of council regarding the rate increase or the contract and the extension available. So just put that out there as well. I'm happy to answer questions. But tonight I wanted to talk about bear carts. As we know, very important service that we offer here for City of Snoqualmie residents. Recently, due to some supply chain issues with our vendor, not having raw materials to get those manufactured, we did experience some delays in getting the orders that we placed to have those bear carts on hand for residents of Snoqualmie. So we were expecting a shipment the end of July, beginning of August, that was sent back. It was delayed because of not having the materials. And then when they did quality inspection, they also noticed that the lids were not working properly, so they took them back too. So a couple of things that impacted us having those carts on hand. We just got those carts the second week of September. So we have them back in hand now. They're all cleared inspection and everything like that. And so we've been filling all the back orders that we had for folks that were waiting on those carts. We've also proactively, to kind of make sure we don't run into this problem again, we already have 2 more orders that are going to be in by the end of this year, to make sure that we maintain good inventory, because as we know, it's very important to have those on hand for residents here in the Valley. I think that was it. That was all I had. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
No, that was part important because we've had citizens come talk to us how we're endangering their children by not having bear cans available. And we really depend on you guys to have it. Okay, well, we haven't gone to the extent of saying this is bear country, we need bear cans all over, which I'm reluctant to do, but where citizens want, they need to be able to have access to something to protect their garbage from the bears.
No, absolutely. Very important. Sincerely apologize for that delay. Again, we've reached out to our vendor to make sure that we have those, again, having those 2 orders placed to come in by the end of the year. So we've been working hard with them to make sure that we'll have them. And I just urge, anyone that maybe, no one should have been paying for those carts if they didn't have them. So if that's a concern that you hear, please, refer them to me. I'm more than happy to make sure that that didn't happen. If there are any other complaints that people are missing them, like I said, we have them. Please give those to me directly, and I'll make sure that we get those taken care of.
Can you tell us what is the process that a citizen has to go through to get a bear can?
You just typically contact our customer service line. We're available through email, through chat, also by phone. And then on your next service day, our drivers will swap out your regular can for the bear resistant can.
Right. All right. Glad you got those in.
Yeah.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you
Yes,
very
bear
much.
season's coming.
Is, thank you so much. Have a good evening.
All right, we did the introductions. Go to other business, which would be proposed biennial budget department presentation. Can I make it through an à la carte mode or?
Well, how would you like to proceed? Which division would you like to start with?
Public Works?
Okay. Park, streets, fleet, facilities, engineering,
I did. between
water,
Parks and Public
sewer.
Works, so. Well, why don't we hold the utilities and do the utilities together?
Okay,
Um, that being the other utilities. Probably the big one from there is streets, so why don't we?
So we've got 6 presentations for you, basically. Water, sewer, and stormwater, we can hold off on, as you're suggesting, Councilmember Holloway. We can go into parks and streets, fleet and facilities, as well as engineering. But first, before that, I kind of want to give just a brief overview. Just provide a little bit of background. On September the 12th, this year, the mayor released her proposed 2023-2024 biennial budget. We also provided a financial forecast at that time. Since that, we've been in this centrifuge internally inside the city overall, trying to figure out, is there any sort of additional capacity we might find within our overall kind of resources for the next 2-year period? But also, is there any sort of adjustments the departments may want to make within the allotment that they were given so far as a part of the mayor's budget, so that we can really tune ourselves into what we need to accomplish over this next 2-year period? And so we've been focused on trying to find ways to make sure that the departments are set up for success in the next 2 years, because we're going to have a lot of work to do, as we know. So with that said, we're going through these department presentations this week for the most part. This is the budget that we will be turning over to council. It becomes council's budget at that point for amendment and adjustment from there on. In terms of the next steps, we're going to come back on October the 10th, basically, and have a full discussion with all the council members together about maybe some of the changes council may like to see and what your priorities are overall for the budget moving forward. As a part of this process, we have Jen Ferguson with us here today, the finance and HR director, who is tracking your questions as we kind of move through these presentations, so we can gather all that feedback that we need and then eventually respond to those questions that you may have. But with that said, I'm going to invite Mike up, or to continue sitting where he is, to deliver these presentations. And he's got Parks and Streets up right now. And so with that said, I'll turn it over. Thank you.
so let's talk about parks. Obviously, the mission of the Parks Department is deliver parks that we're all proud of, that our community is safe in, and that provide for the enjoyment of our community and provide a variety of recreation opportunities for our citizens. Crammed over there on the side, you got a little snapshot of our organizational chart. So the Parks Division is made up of myself as director. There's supervisor Kevin over there that we just introduced. And then there's a lead worker position, and there are 4 park maintenance positions. And that's who takes care of all of the parks. Accomplishments that I cannot claim any credit for because they happened before I got here. Snoqualmie Point Park had the roof replaced on the view structure, and the wood siding was replaced with hardy board, and the facility got painted. There's a new interpretive sign that also was installed at the park. The new multi-year landscape maintenance contract was developed, bid, and is in place. Several of the footbridges in the trail system were rebuilt last summer. We did electrical upgrades. I actually was part of this. We did some electrical upgrades over at Railroad Park to facilitate the holiday display, to eliminate extension cords running across sidewalks. And then we are currently refurbishing the Center Street electrical system, so we don't have any issues when we put the lights up next week. The parks maintenance functional classification is shown. Do you received this ahead of time, correct? Not the presentation. Okay. Got it.
So
I'll probably.
within the budget book that you have with you, page 34, you will find this table on the parks maintenance functional classification.
No problem. I just didn't want to read a slide to people because nothing's worse than that.
Uh-huh.
Our outlook for the next biennium, we are going to, we're proposing to complete a parks, open space and recreation study, also referred to as a parks master plan. This is an in-depth study into the park system to actually, capture the trends of use to make sure the right equipment is in the right parks. We're not maintaining and replacing equipment that really is no longer, there's no desire for, or no need by the community. Maybe a different piece of equipment needs to be there. Also involving public meetings and other outreach opportunities. Usually there's a online poll, et cetera, to capture that data. So we can pull that all into a comprehensive document. So we have some guidance through our park system as we go through the process of maintaining it and changing it as our demographics evolve in this city. We have the all-inclusive playground project pretty much keyed up and ready to go as soon as it stops raining next year. We're looking, the Riverview Park Playground is already rolling. And then my priority is to address deferred maintenance of parks, which was a result of pandemic reductions. In the past, and if it needs to continue, no problem. But in the budget, there were two separate line items for parks. There's big parks and there's little park, mini parks. Mini parks got defunded for the last 4 years. The majority of your play structures are in mini parks. A lot of the park furniture that you own is in mini parks. So a lot of that has degraded to a quality that I'm not proud of. And I am asking for some funds so that we can go out and get that corrected. That's going to be our major push going forward. If you just want to combine it all under parks, I'm good with that too. It doesn't matter to me. I just need to know where the stuff is. So I'll leave it at that. And then talking about streets. The mission of the streets department is to maintain the transportation corridors throughout town, also responsible for sidewalks and signage throughout the city. The streets division is made up of myself, the Parks and Streets superintendent, the Parks and Streets lead worker, and then we have one street technician to handle all that work. In the past, there has been a half position for stormwater and a half position for street, and there were two of them. My recommendation is to separate them so that you have one person focused on streets and one person focused on stormwater. It helps with the accountability and management of those tasks. So that's what I'm asking in this budget, is to separate that. So it's a lot more streamlined and focused.
You had two people, each were half-time in the two departments,
Correct.
and now you're just saying one's in one department, one's in the other department.
Exactly. It will help us streamline the maintenance folks. Accomplishments, once again, that were handled by the folks that were here, and they get all the credit. Were Railroad Avenue crosswalk enhancements, LED streetlight conversions. I've heard, because I wasn't here for it, that we had quite the snowfall last year, and staff took care of it like champs. I was here for this one. We did apply a gap mastic to Mill Pond Road and to the the Grand Canyon of the Parkway, there on the side of the Parkway. And staff is in the process of replacing many worn and faded signage. We're concentrating on stop signs first. We will branch out from there to make sure the signage is in a standard that we have safe operation of our transportation system. Then we have the streets and maintenance functional classification on page.
37.
We're getting this down.
We are teamwork.
So your salary and wages are gonna go from 86,000 to 216?
So I'll take that on if you don't, if you permit me. We had a park supervisor during this last budget cycle as well as a parks lead worker. What Mike is proposing is really kind of joining those two together under kind of an organizational umbrella called Parks and Streets. So when you look at the positions now, we've got not just a park supervisor, but a parks and streets supervisor, as well as a parks and streets lead worker. And so we're taking advantage of maybe some of the changes in workflow throughout the year, for example. So with parks, right? A lot of that time, a lot of that work happens during the summer and spring months, for example. That's when their busy season is, but maybe during the winter, they're focused on lights. But then after that, it kind of gets a little bit low in terms of the workload that's required. And so using that personnel in order to say support streets would be very beneficial overall to the needs that we have in the city. So Mike is trying to find efficiencies with the staffing that we have. So you'll see a reduction in the parks, right side of the house, back on whatever page that was, but then an increase in streets. And so comprehensively together, the FTEs aren't necessarily changing except for a reduction based because we're eliminating the maintenance operations manager position and eventually replacing that or substituting that for a stormwater and urban forestry supervisor, which Mike is going to recommend as a part of his overall budget. But in essence, when you take in combination all these different changes, this is what you're going to see in terms of what we're going to budget or what we hope to budget for personnel over the next 2-year period.
So help me with the math, because in parks, we go from 511,000 to 484. So you've got a 36 or 25, okay. Yeah, $25,000 reduction. And in streets, you're going from 85 to 216. It seems the difference in streets is larger than the reduction.
So during this time period, we have had vacancies across the two divisions itself. And so when you're looking at the 22 column, you're not seeing necessarily the budget for 2022. You're seeing how much we anticipate we're going to finish projected by the end of the year. And so that is a massive explanation, or at least a component to this that you're seeing in terms of the overall change and percentage change. And in fact, we actually had a conversation at CD yesterday regarding what is actually best to put in that 22 column, right? Should it be the budget or should it be actuals? We see both the benefits to both, for example. And so our proposal eventually is to actually produce a table that includes the history of the 2019-2020 budget, the 21-22 budget, and then this 2023-2024 budget. So you see that across the functional classifications as well as the funds in one table. And so that is what we're going to be working towards. But as of right now in this budget document, you're seeing 2022 estimated for year end.
Councilman Johnson, you have your hand up.
Do we have a fund balance that would be equivalent to the difference between the 2022 actuals and the 2022 budget for salaries? And would that fund balance make up the difference?
So the fund balance itself, if we were to report the 22 budget in here, the fund balance would be lower that we're reporting for the general fund, which starts on, it's an earlier page. All right, so in terms of the page 18, for example, you're looking at you would look at the general fund overview. And if we were to report the budget, that means we would actually have less ending fund balance, right, reported here. If we were to assume that we were going to spend the same amount that we had budgeted for this year. Does that answer your question? I don't think it does, but.
Not quite.
Okay.
I guess I would wonder, would there be a way to break it out to see what the difference would have been? And I suppose this goes back to our discussion in CD committee, just seeing what was the anticipated expenditure And then I guess I could just work it out that way. And I would anticipate that that difference would have been carried over somewhere else.
Yeah,
But also be aware that the spending ending fund balances to cover ongoing expenses is a short-term gain.
correct. So we would hopefully tie, right, whatever cash we choose to spend, right? That's not. Once it enters our fund balance, we would treat that as one-time, right, resources that we have available to us. And so the goal is to try to match up where that one-time resource versus other kind of one-time expenditures that we would have. When you're looking at, say, the parks deferred repairs that we've included here, that's attempting to use some of that cash that we have in fund balance to support making sure that our parks are, that we're providing the level of service expected by the community. And so raising us to that level that the community expects. Hopefully we're using one-time sources in order to achieve that, and then using some reoccurring expenditures over time that we have budgeted as well to support that long-term, right, over time. So we're just trying to bring it back up to standard. And so, yeah, tying our one-time sources of funding with one-time uses is, I think, critical and helps us to sustain our budget over time. So
Yeah, but it's gotta be a mix in that it's one time to restore level of service. And then it's gonna have to be ongoing to maintain.
but hopefully not at the level
at the
required,
level,
right, to
yeah.
bring it back up to
If
it.
you let
So,
it slide, it costs you more to get
yeah.
it back.
and so what we have is a forecast table in here that's a part of the appendices under, I believe, A1, that we've included that tries to differentiate between one-time sources of expenditures and essentially trying to show what is our recurring revenues versus our recurring expenditures and how's that going to change over time. So
And some of this difference is also coming from stormwater. Because last budget, Kevin's position was in charge of parks, streets, stormwater. So part of that also equates to part of the percentage of change. Because
does.
he's no longer being charged to stormwater.
Why not?
So in essence, just to further
I have an answer for you. Because stormwater is something that needs a lot of focus. And it was not receiving the focus that it deserves. It's my recommendation that we get somebody who's focused on stormwater and urban forestry as a system. So that we meet our contractual obligations with the state.
So I was just gonna, mine is more mechanical of an answer, not as substantive as he's at, providing you for the most part. But in essence, the past budget cycle, we actually moved our urban forestry program out of the general fund and into stormwater overall. And so that carried all the personnel associated with that, including the oversight of that, which was included the parks and supervisor. So that's why that park supervisor was charged within the stormwater fund, is because they were providing oversight before it moved into there. So, and that's.
Right, but. So I'll come at it in a different direction. Let's say it costs $9. And you said $3 in the streets, $3 in the park, and $3 into the storm. You're now saying storm didn't get the attention it needed. So I'm gonna probably take that $3 position and make it a $5 full-time position.
I'm asking for,
Taking that $3 and now shifting it over to those other departments which are not part of the utility. So that's
correct,
an increase over here too.
which need more attention also, because they didn't get the attention they needed either. So what I'm asking for is $450 for all 4 positions. $450 for stormwater, $450 for streets, $450 for parks, and $450 for urban forestry.
Okay, what do you mean 450?
Well, you picked $9.
Oh, you just picked it up.
So-
I just tried to make the math easy.
And also,
You did.
Mike is, well, we would give up the maintenance operations manager position as well. As a
That
part
is
of
how I'm
this.
proposing to pay for
balancing.
this.
Okay, that was my next question, because all that equated to 2 budget ups.
Correct.
How are we funding it? So we're taking a
Elimination
position out somewhere
Of the
else.
maintenance operations manager.
Okay. Okay,
Which has been vacant for 2 years.
yes, we must be able to get up by without it. Councilman Johnson, you have a question?
Yeah, I feel like there's just sort of a trend when I look at the percent change from 2022 to 2023. The total uses tends to be greater than inflation, even where we are now. But the total sources tends to not be as large. So I'm just trying to figure out where that difference is coming from. So just as an example, on page 18, where we're looking at the general fund overview, the total sources change is 6.2%, but the total uses change is 31.4%.
So we can certainly look into that for you. My perspective right now would be that our revenue sources tend to be more stable over time. We tend to collect our property taxes right on time for the most part, and so they're not subject necessarily to the inflationary increases that you might see in other sources. Sales and use tax and business and occupation tax typically take up probably about 20% of our total revenues. Utility taxes may not necessarily, they're kind of lagging a little bit because they go through rate changes and rate increases. We've heard potentially one today from Waste Management. There are other proposals out there from PSC, for example, that also are going through the UTC right now and everything. So, so in essence, I mean, that's what I would share with you. You know, property taxes make up roughly 45% of our total revenues, and they're typically only increasing about 1% per year, plus the value of new construction and so on. So they're not really subject to inflation.
Yeah, and not that volatile.
I do have a. So that first column, though, I mean, it shows what's happened in 2022. We were down 20% in employees.
Right,
So-
it's actual, not budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why you see a huge increase, because we're hoping to be fully staffed 2023, right?
Yes, correct.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that impacts your employee business benefits, salaries, wages, highway services, supplies, everything. So.
Well, and it's unfair to you guys to say, oh my gosh, you're increasing by 20% between 2019 and or 2022 and 2023, when it's actuals versus projected budget.
Mhm.
We really do need to be looking at what we thought we were gonna need budget to what we're planning for budget next year, and that's a much better comparison than the actuals, because again, we didn't.
Yeah, the reason
Things
why
happened
the
and
reason-
we
yeah.
didn't staff up.
The reason why I included actuals is because it's important to, I think, also report our beginning fund balance starting for 2023. And if I use budget within this table itself, I'd have an ending fund balance that is less than what, you know, we would likely have.
You need both.
We need both, right? That's basically, yeah, true. So like I said, we're producing another table, right, for example, that shows that change over time between the budgets and the one that we're proposing now, I think is something that we hope to accomplish, that we've had discussions about today about doing, and that's what we're planning on doing. So. Mhm.
Councilman Johnson, you have your hand up again?
Yeah, it also seems another benefit of seeing the actuals is that it can potentially show, if we looked over a number of years, if we have trends and things that we tend to think we're going to get more in terms of sources, or that we spend less than we think we're going to in the for that particular fund or for that particular line item, whatever it is, that there could be a trend over time, and seeing the actuals versus the what was budgeted can help identify those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only caution, I think the last 2 years are discontinuity in making that kind of projection.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we will not go through those times again.
Right. Here, here.
Fair.
Anybody object, go for it. All right.
So our focus for our streets in the next biennium is to continue to maintain the streets in safe and efficient manner. Sorry. It's well past my bedtime at this point. Remember, I get up at 3 and I go to work at 5:30. Formalize the streets sign inventory and replacement. A lot of our street signs are 20 years old and they last about 15 years. So we're taking steps to reduce cost in that manner and to get that addressed promptly. And then one of the other major priorities, in fact, I've already talked to Kevin about it today, is we need to establish a street marking program so that we go out and paint the crosswalks and the stop bars and the center lines and the fog lines annually so that they don't get into the condition they're in now. We are currently going around painting some of the crosswalks in the safe route to school area because that's what the county kind of is able to squeeze in. Oh, I want to be at the front of the line next year so that our work gets done. So we'll divvy the city up into thirds or quarters or whatever's appropriate so that we have that program running into the future. And that's streets and parks.
Only got 10 minutes. All right.
So that's 1 out of 6. Do you want an executive session?
That's it.
We probably have, yeah.
Well, I got 5 more.
There's more.
Oh, there's more. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Which division would you like to talk about next?
What are my options?
Engineering or fleet facilities?
Wait.
So our fleet overview, obviously the mission of the fleet department is to keep everything with a motor running and keep the city staff with vehicles so we can get to take care of the needs of the community. It consists of myself, 1 fleet and facility supervisor, and 1 mechanic. That's the entire division. Last year, we managed a fleet of about 140 vehicles, ensuring multiple city departments can get around. Total miles driven last year were 840,000 miles. They purchased 19 new vehicles, decommissioned and surplus 28 vehicles, along with 1,100 completed service requests with just 1 mechanic and 1 supervisor. And fleet is certified by Evergreen Fleet to meet environmental and air quality criteria set forth by the Evergreen Fleet Council. The ER&R fund is on page.
Losing my job here. 56.
I think this table is on page 57.
Jim probably telling me he's not going to be here for next meeting.
Unacceptable.
Jim and the committee, what's up? Okay, gotcha. He's gonna be a few minutes late for F&A. Sorry about that. Where are we with? Well, it's reflection out, rate review on fleet rates to the other departments.
So we have a internal cost allocation presentation scheduled for the 18th at the Finance and Administration Committee.
And we've got, was it 8? Nope. 7 Ford Explorers SUV 4x4s.
Well-
North Bend.
All those are North Bend.
So this is a component of the police take-home car program. For the most part, we've got 1 Snoqualmie vehicle that would be new, right, for the police department, but 7, yes, that we are proposing would come from North Bend, and we're having discussions with them kind of as we speak for the most part regarding this program moving forward.
So I'm confused by that. We're having discussions with North Bend about the police take-home program?
Correct. So in essence, right, they have a number of FTEs that are funded by their charge that we charge them on an annual basis. We are having conversations. They would have a number of officers and sergeants that there would not be sufficient vehicles in order to support. And so we are having conversations with North Bend about funding their own sergeants and police officers with a police take-home car.
All right, so I worry that it's a contract between us and North Bend. So they pay us for a service and we determine how to deliver the service. You've now made a service delivery decision different for North Bend than it is for Snoqualmie. We haven't finished the conversation on take-home cars in Snoqualmie. Right? You're running the risk that you will have officers with better benefits in North Bend than officers in Snoqualmie.
No, I think it would be across the board.
So is this across the board take-home cards, or is this just North Bend take-home cards? And I've got a commensurate amount for Snoqualmie take-home cards.
This is across the board, basically. So
And that was not what was said, so don't confuse me. I go real easy into the confusion land. Okay, so this is all the vehicles that would be required if we were to say we're doing the police take-home service.
So
which
we
would
have,
encompass both Snoqualmie and North Bend.
so we've produced a financial analysis memo that included a schedule of when those vehicles would be purchased. You'll see that not only for Snoqualmie, we would purchase one for 2023, but also one for 2024. As a part of our financial forecast, we've also included one vehicle for 2025 and 2026 as a part of our overall, like I said, forecast. But in essence, we went forward with the numbers that were included as a part of that financial analysis, and we've taken that to North Bend to have those discussions.
Okay.
But they would be a equal partner, basically, as a part of this program. We would expect them to pay for their fair share of this program. Moving forward and
Please, I'm just saying, they don't get to make a separate decision.
so as a part of the mayor's proposed budget, we are assuming that the police take-home program would eventually be approved by both our council and the North Bend Council. If the Snoqualmie Council decides to, amend the budget proposal here to remove the police take-home program, then I guess we will have similar conversations with North Bend at that time.
Right, and part of my only issue is we haven't approved the program yet. Not that it shouldn't be in there, just we haven't approved the program yet.
Right, but this is a proposed budget, right? So it's got to anticipate some of that kind of stuff. Doesn't it?
It should anticipate what we've said yes to. Yeah. We haven't said yes.
Right, but this is something that we could potentially say yes to. And then it would need to be in the budget, right?
No, the minute we say yes, we do a budget amendment to incorporate it in. We should make sure that ending fund balance should be there to support it. That there's capacity to, we should not make decisions that irregardless the budget can't support.
Right.
Okay. So we should, if we're considering this, we should make sure that there is funds available to support it if we make the decision. However, incorporating it into, here's the execution plan of it, might be, and I'm just maybe
like it's jumping the
uncomfortable
gun.
with it. It's a little far until we actually make a decision to do it. But
So the budget would appropriate for this program if council were to approve this as is, for the most part. I would also suggest that there are other things that we are proposing as a part of this budget too. Such as we've just discussed the parks deferred repairs, for example, where we would appreciate including that as a part of this overall budget moving forward without requiring prior approval from council to do so.
Do they,
sure what that means.
is it? Maybe I'm misunderstanding the process. This is the mayor's suggested budget.
Correct.
And this is something that, based on what we've talked about, maybe she's anticipating this going through for the budget and she's showing that it's planned in the budget. We could, if we said, let's not show that until we decide to say yes, which totally makes sense. We would appropriate the funds for it, but can we not do that also in reverse?
We can, it's a level of comfort.
Chair,
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
thank you. I realize that we are bumping up against FNA. I did just feel really confused about the presentation on page 58, where we list out a bunch of vehicles for North Bend and one for Snoqualmie. It's not making sense in my head how this is a program-wide program, or excuse me, a department-wide program, when the numbers don't look that way. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars for North Bend and one for Snoqualmie. This looks like North Bend gets a bunch of cars and Snoqualmie gets one in 2023.
We could certainly produce more tables basically reflecting what our current fleet looks like in the police department. North Bend has purchased upwards of 4 vehicles now at this stage, and yet they have 12.76 FTEs, I believe, as a part of this. Snoqualmie, out of the fleet that we currently have for police, has a higher percentage of those vehicles in excess of what the FTE count would suggest. And so we're trying to balance both the replacement or the vehicles that we currently have with the ones that we would need in order to, support this program fully. But we can produce a table showing that basic if we need to.
Okay. It's just, that's what it looks like as presented. I think that I follow what you're saying is that Snoqualmie, the Snoqualmie side has less need for the replacement of vehicles right now.
Or
Is that correct?
Has less need for the purchase of new vehicles.
Right. Yes. Okay. Fair.
So let me back up.
Okay. It'd just be nice if that showed somewhere more explicitly.
So, and let me hold on that question, because it may actually be homework to go do. So we didn't get through. Do we as a committee want to have another meeting? I assume we should have it before council.
Well, it's so we have another committee round scheduled for the 17th and 18th where we might bring these presentations back. Maybe we focus on other areas other than maybe the presentations you have not seen. We don't intend to represent the information that we've been presenting at these committee levels there. It's kind of an opportunity for council to say, okay, what would you like to engage in? What would you like to discuss? I think Jen has been recording some of your questions here that we'll try to address in the next week, right, for the most part. But where do you want to kind of go with this budget at this stage? Because we are turning it over to council, and how would you like to direct us?
Okay, so we've got one more meeting to go through on this. Can we pick up at Fleet where we are right now in that next meeting, proceed on through? The onus is on to us to go ahead and review and come back in that meeting with it, or even prior, send to Drew or to Jen. Explain this to me over here. We can fire those questions to you in email, if you'll record them and, share the question and share the answer to the entire council. Well, let's pick up at streets next meeting, proceed on through the rest of them.
Fleet.
And
Fleet next
Fleet,
week,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, Fleet. And then pick up on any questions we may have in the interim time. We do the homework, go through the stuff, ask those questions. Okay, with that, seems FNA is not here yet. If it's okay, I'd love to do like a 5-minute executive session. Oh, you're here. Well, why don't you join us for executive session? Because you're probably going to hear it. So can we, Bob, who should be here? Who should we limit the attendance to for that executive session? I think he's off.
Joan's got a question.
We did create a separate meeting link specifically for executive session. It was emailed to all of you. So that would be one option. Do not have it as part of the recording or.
Oh,
we're not even worried about
it cannot be part of the recording. Okay. That's gonna. So F&A chair. Do you want to have an executive session as part of your agenda? Okay. That'll, Councilman Johnson, I'm gonna close out Parks and Public Works. We may have an executive session as part of F&A to discuss the matter.
Okay.
You're join back in through the link in the email in regards to executive sessions.
Councilmember Christensen has her hand up.
Great.
Where is she?
On Zoom.
I'm online. I don't believe that I've received a link to the executive session, so I was just hoping that I could get one if possible, please. Whether it's
to her
going on in
the F&A
Parks or
Yeah, it was sent specifically to the Parks and Public Works.
Can you send it also to the F&A committee?
I'll take care of that during the F&A meeting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So Councilman John, if you can hold through F&A, I understand you have things being juggled there. You okay with starting with executive session? All right. We'll start with the executive session.
Okay, that works.
So we'll switch F&A and to start out with executive session. So if you're not a required member for the executive session, I ask that you exit.
Do you need to adjourn Parks and Public Works first?
And I adjourn Parks and Public Works.
Is there a second or I don't know.
Seconded.
Aye.
I have
All right.
my stuff. There you go.
Okay.